Hi, my name is Grace Shalom Hopkins and welcome to another episode of Spin Weekly. Today we are pulling hand-pulled roving from a blending board and talking about tweed using my woad dyed roving. There's a lot of different elements going into this thing. This title is full of the keywords. So stay tuned. The basis of this is the woad dyed fiber Falkland that I made for the February Patreon people. I used some hand-dyed Gotland wool locks from my Swedish friend Emma. I have linked her down below. And I have Paradise Fiber, gold, sari silk, links down below, and some, I'm trying to describe this color to you now, like fiery burgundy sari silk goodness. You'll see it in a second from Nicole and our swap box, and I've linked her down below. Also the video to the woad and the unboxing of my Swedish box and the Nicole unboxing. Whew, like I said, this is a video pulling together lots of different elements, so the link section is gonna be popping. So I wanted to do something really inspired by the visual I had for the February Patreon people, which was Brigitte Stay, Brigitte's Fire. So I took the wool that I dyed, the woad, and I put it on the blending board and I laid it with these burgundy Gotland locks and the two different types of sari silk and created some magic, I think. And I used the framework of tweed creation, which I have in my book Roving. Yes, I believe it is the book Roving. You can go to my store and it's available as an individual recipe card, or you can grab it in the book, which is available in both print and digital. And I've left it links down below, so I believe it's Roving. For some reason I'm waffling if it's card, but it's not card because I clearly used hand cards. What is my brain doing? It's definitely Roving. Anyway, I have a really detailed write-up and recipe formula for the different ways I create tweed with lots of different textures and colors. And if you've seen my books, there's tons and tons of different variations. Every recipe has at least one whole page of variations, and it's not like two variations on a page. It's a list of variations. Let me show you actually. Okay, so I literally have roving right here, and on the back is the recipe I'm talking about. So here's the beginning of tweed, looking pretty. Tons of information. You can hopefully see how large the print is. I try to make it wide print, large print, so that way you can read it from afar or on the floor from your wheel. This recipe is still going. You get the idea. Like, I was gonna do a flip through, but it's still, there's so many, like, okay, here's the variations. Okay, here are variations. Woo. And then that goes on for one more page. So you get the idea. Lots of variations. You can find that in my book Roving, and that's the premise that I followed. I did a simplified version. So anyhow, once I put it on the blending board, I hand pulled that roving. It was kind of a mess at first because you'll find out why. If you're not a Patreon patron and don't have the voiceover, let's see if you can spot my mistake. What caused me all of these problems and how did I correct it? That's your paying attention homework. Comments down below if you can catch it. So yeah, pulled it. It went well after I corrected my initial mistake, and then I went ahead and spun it as a 2-ply to get a really fluffy, beautiful yarn, and it is downstairs. But it's super beautiful. I will insert pictures as per usual right here. You can see how varied and fiery it is, the different textures, how they work together within the whole. This is set with a unicorn fiber rinse, and I think it bloomed really nicely. Also, if you're a Patreon patron, in the next couple of days, you will get a bonus voiceover to this video talking about the history of Falkland, because when I filmed, or I guess posted, the February Patreon video, I mentioned that Falkland was attached to the British Islands, and somebody commented, JK, it was totally colonized. That's not what they said. That's my summary. They're, of course, right. And because of that misunderstanding of myself, perhaps others have that misunderstanding. So I want to go ahead and do a mini breed study that I will release to my Patreon people first. And then in a few months, you guys will get it, because occasionally I do de-archive some of the voiceovers from Patreon that are 4 to 6 months old. So yeah. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, or the fiber that we're going to be working with, the woad, Falkland, and the locks, and there you can see the locks where they came from. They're Gotland locks, and they're really beautiful. I also have this gorgeous gold sari silk roving, and the burgundy kind of jewel-toned rainbow sari silk situation going on over there. So for observant viewers, you will notice that I have just committed my first hand-pulled roving mistake. If I were doing rollags, this would be the correct way to do things. You want the add-ins on the outside, so that way when you roll the rollag, it looks as glitzy and glamorous as possible. Just put the main body of the flat colored wool on the inside, and the cool stuff on the outside, purely for a visual, you know. When you are pulling roving, do not do this. It is not going to work. Put the wool first, and then put your add-ins. Preferably put a layer of wool, and then the add-ins, and then another layer of wool, so you don't have to deal with them at all. That would be smart. So, anyway, I'm going to let you watch this, and let's talk a little bit about the history of Falkland Islands and Falkland sheep until we get to the next part of this, and then we can jump back into history. Okay, so the Falkland Islands are not near the UK, as I initially thought. However, they are a British overseas territory. They're actually located in the South Atlantic Ocean, and there are 78 total islands, East Falkland and West Falkland being the big ones, and then 776 smaller ones, which is a hard number for me to enunciate properly. They have a population of just under 3,500 inhabitants, and the economy is popping due to tourism and wool, and they have like an oil business going. Things are going well for the Falkland people, Falkland Islanders. However, because they are a British overseas colony, you might have already guessed that things have not always gone well for them. If you partake in their wool, I strongly recommend you look up the history of how they were colonized by Europeans and dig deep into that, because I think we have a responsibility to acknowledge where colonization has happened and be aware of that. Especially us in the West, and especially people who are super ignorant like me, who completely did not know that the Falkland Islands were not in the UK. So in more modern times, like 10 years before I was born, in 1982, Argentina, who apparently, through kind of a bit of a convoluted set of history for my complete ignorance of, oh wait, cliffhanger, we have to stop and show you what happens when you put the add-ins on the outside when you're pulling fiber. It means that your wool does not slide off the board. Also, if your toddler is helping, that can make it complicated too. And instead gets stuck, and it's terrible, and you really, really, really have to pull it out of the little thing that you used. So when you are drum carding, you're probably familiar that if you put a layer of wool, things come off nicely. It's the same here. So you can see I'm really trying. It's going so good. It's going so well at the ends until we get to those add-ins, and I'm like, oh, is there a way to save this? Right away, I knew that I had caused myself quite a bit of problems. So my plan was to just diz off which is what I'm doing here. You diz. That's what. I'm actually using an unused ear stretching gauge. This is I think it's 0 or a 00. It's either a 0 or a 00. Anyhow, you can use all kinds of different things like a cake dip, but I thought this was really effective because it has a little bit of a flared base. So back to what I'm going for. My plan was diz off what I could and then go back and relay the fiber on the board. Now, I don't think I ended up capturing the relaying, but you can see how much better it went. Yeah, I didn't capture it, but look, this is how it's supposed to work. You get the edge and you just gently weaky yourself down. And I know there's a way to zigzag across, but I just like the smaller pieces anyway. So I tend to go up in a section of 3 to 4. And then you can turn the board however you feel led, whatever is most comfortable for you. And it ends up being really pretty easy. Another thing that I learned is, see how I'm holding my hand? That's helping me not to chunk up the top layers, which is exactly what happened in the first one, and go ahead and get everything all across. Another trick is when you get to the end, just like when you're making rollags, don't accidentally make like a really wimpy last 3 inches. Just go ahead and yank it off when you're thinking, maybe I'm getting a little bit low. Just yank it off, so that way you don't have like 7 hairs coming through your disc. Maybe I'm too much of a perfectionist, but that drives me nuts. So anyhow, what's on my board is a mix of the hand-pulled roving that I did the first time that I put back on the board because it was basically just a sandwich. And also, some of them were good from that first pass, so I beefed it up with some other stuff. Oh, you can see where I filled up the other half of the board. Anyhow, so we're gonna, as we go into the spinning, which you have heard me talk about before, let's walk back over psychologically to the Falkland Islands. Now, the Falkland Islands in 1982, Beanie Cameo were occupied by Argentinian troops because Argentina really thinks that the Falkland Islands should belong to them. However, according to Wikipedia, which is not necessarily a reliable resource on, public affairs sometimes, most Falkland Islanders prefer being a UK-occupied territory. So perhaps it is because in that April, they had a 10-week war called the Falklands War, in which 649 Argentinian military personnel, 255 British military personnel, and 3 Falkland Islanders died. Now, their population is just under 3,500, so 3 is larger to them than maybe it would be to a larger nation, even. So I'm gonna make a wild, completely uneducated guess and say that that was probably not good for the Argentinian PR. Again, I could be completely wrong. Maybe it was a terrible battle and they just lost to the British and everything was terrible. But I don't know. I'm going into, what do you call? Personal assessment instead of looking at the facts. But anyhow, so today their economy is quite good. They're at least supposedly pretty happy being under British rule. They're all British citizens, and their sheep have a very interesting breed profile. So they're not a unique breed. They are Corriedales and Romneys primarily, But then the islanders also brought in Polworths, which is referred to as ideals on the islands, which is kind of cool. And now, currently, they are experimenting with infusing the bloodline with some strains of merino. So Falkland Island wool is an ongoing genetic soup pot. So when you get Falkland wool, you're not necessarily going to get something that's super consistent. For example, Icelandic is on an island and it's isolated, and like the Falkland Islands, it's very much its own thing, except not like the Falkland Islands, it literally is its own thing. The Falkland Islands is a mishmash that they're continually working with and modifying. However, it's cool because they don't have really any sheep diseases and they don't treat their wool. So by default, it's organic. It's not necessarily organic labeled by an outside company, it just is because there isn't any sheep related chemicals. There wasn't the option. Anyhow, so it's considered to be a really superior fiber, and historically it was almost exclusively sold to European wool processing trades. Most of them seem to get together and do bulk buys, which is popular in lots of parts of the world. However, the Quality Falkland Wool Scheme, which is an official organization, is really super interested in classing its wool correctly, and lots of the farms are members of this, and they want to make sure that their wool is considered premium across the board. They don't like a lot of weird gunk in there. They don't like weaker strands of wool. They're the cream of the crop wool group, from what I understand. And lots of hand spinning fiber comes through those guys. So there you go. That was my really rambly and quite a bit of completely unfounded personal insight. I didn't mean to do that, but it just kind of happened. Again, I recommend you do your own research on the Falkland Islands, and if you do, leave any interesting tidbits you find in the comment section down below so I too can become more educated about the Falkland Islands. Yeah, as far as the spin goes, it's pretty straightforward. I just spun it from the hand-pulled roving and I applied it center pole ball like I always do. This is pretty much my potato chip spin. The cool thing about this spin is the story behind it, which you can watch my woad video if you haven't already to kind of see what I was going with Brigid's Day and the fiery goodness and the woad. Also, of course, the hand-pulled aspect. And I think it was even more educational because you got to see real-time what happens if you don't do it the right way. So, I really hope you enjoyed this voiceover and you learned something about the Falkland Islands and something about hand-pulled roving. I don't know how much more of video I have left here. I feel like I'm just filling up space. So, I'll tell you about my video editing problems then. That's some hair-raising excitement right there. My video editor updated to a whole new platform, like, you know, when social media completely updates and everything's different, except it kept crashing and they didn't do appropriate bug patching. So I spent 2 weeks trying to get with their customer service, but it was like tomb sweeping day in Beijing for a while, and then we had a crazy power outage in the middle of the Kansas prairie, and it's a Beijing time, so the only time I could get to it was working days after 8 o'clock at night, my time, which is super hard when you are military and your husband is off of surgery and you have a toddler. Like, that was not working out for me. So eventually I had a 2-hour customer service thing where they like tapped the computer and did all this, that, and the other, and it didn't work. So I got a new program. However, I think this program is a lot more user-friendly, and in the end, it was a good thing. So, anyhow, that brings us to the end of this rambly voiceover, aren't they all? And I hope you enjoyed it. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that video. I kind of got my intro and outro mixed up. My husband was in surgery yesterday, and I got 3 hours of sleep yesterday, 3.5 hours. And last night I got more, but not by much. So he's doing fine. He had a skier thumb injury, and they did not have to do grafting, so that was really cool. But soon we'll be headed to Springfield with my family so we can do some convalescent leave with family. My sister's here to help, which is why I can make this video, but that's all why it's a little late and I'm a little scatterbrainy. So yeah. If for some reason, actually, I did just film my fiber share box, so this actually might go up later. So just for accuracy's sake, it was March 11th that the surgery happened that I'm filming it. Today's March 12th. So if this goes up maybe next week instead of this week, he didn't get surgery next week. He got surgery this week. Anyway, I wanted to give a big shout out to my Patreon people who make all of this stuff possible. I want to give a shout out to all of my commenters and subscribers and everybody who contributes emotionally and intellectually to this, everybody who offers to send me stuff, everybody who does swaps with me, everybody who gives me advice, everybody who corrects my geography and social history regarding anything. You guys are awesome and truly the heartbeat of this show. I so appreciate it. I also would like to thank the people who buy books and spinning wheels and the people who contact me to support them in their web design journey and their branding journey. You guys are incredible. And with that little love festival, I will see you next time. Bye!